I can't pass nobody. Bumper, clear. Good job.
The 54 needed a caution, so he spun you out there. Hopefully NASCAR's paying attention to that. Hell yeah, let's go to Phoenix, boys! Yeah!
And welcome back. Another episode of Historic Hot Laps, post Miami, NASCAR Playoffs. Let's dive right into some stuff. We'll kick it off with some news. John Force had an update. We'll play the video here in a second, but sounds like he's doing a lot better. Was trying to get to the track for Vegas Nationals. Got released to be at the track, obviously not drive. Will we ever see him in a car again? Probably not, but at least he's up and about, doing some things, feeling better about life. Family's very grateful, obviously all the fans, everybody's very happy to see that. But here's a couple cuts from a video he made and released on his social media.
Hi, I'm John Force, 16-time funny car champ, and boy, am I glad to be here after that crash I had in Richmond. But at the end of the day, I'm going to recover, and I'm getting better already. I was in the hospital for 4 months. I'm still working every day to get my body back in shape, but I got to get my mind back in shape. I took a pretty big hit in that crash at Richmond. So I've been in the hospital there in Richmond. I've been in Phoenix, Arizona, going through rehab, and I'm out here now, and I'm working at it every day.
And moving over to IMSA news, Cadillac and Wayne Taylor Racing have announced their core driver lineup with Ricky Taylor and Felipe Albuquerque in one ride, and Jordan Taylor and Louis Delatraz in another ride. So they've kind of got their 2025 driver lineup figured out, set what they're going to do over at the Wayne Taylor Racing and Cadillac joint effort there in IMSA. Moving on to USAC, CJ Leary is going to drive full-time in Silver Crown Series next year in the number 21 car with a joint effort between him and Phil Rossi. This is good to see. Keep him in the USAC Nation and doing great things. Moving over to 500 Sprint Car Tour. We don't talk about this one all that much, but it is good racing. There's a lot of crossover from some of the other Sprint Car Tours, USAC Silver Crowns and whatnot. So they did have their finale, and Cody Swanson won the championship. I'm sure you probably recognize that name from a lot of USAC events and things like that. But Cody Swanson wins the championship for the second time in 3 years in the 500 Sprint Car Tour, so congrats to him on that one. IndyCar, NXT news. Ricardo Escato is going to join Andretti in Indy NXT, driving the number 3 car next year, 2025 season. Good to see that. Another thing with NXT, Jamie Chadwick had said in an interview she's ready to move up rather than returning to the NXT. I think some of this, her going to full-time IndyCar, is kind of a stretch, but I feel like it's probably to keep sponsors happy and try to keep dreams alive. She has done several seasons in NXT, so she could be ready to move up, but there's not a lot of seats left for one, and I feel like if she just wrote it out, she could get on with Andretti Global and keep things going, but probably not going to amount to anything, but it is something that was talked about online. And here's a big one for IndyCar news. Sounds like AutoNation is no longer going to run a sponsorship program in 2025. This is a big blow to Andretti Global. Meyer Shank had, I believe, a little bit dipped their toe in the sponsorship with AutoNation a while back, but mainly Andretti Global. Obviously the Kyle Kirkwood car. We'll see how Andretti fills that car up. That was kind of a full title sponsor on the number 28 car, so that'll take a little bit to work out. Kind of offshoot news here, but Dale Jr. has worked out a deal with his sponsorships and his number 8, and he's going to bring that legendary red number 8 Budweiser livery back to the track. He will run this livery later this year in Florence, November 22nd and 23rd for the South Carolina 400 late model race. Anybody who thinks Dale Jr. probably recognizes the number 8 Budweiser livery, so that'll be pretty cool to see it on a late model car. Little Cars Tour news while we're talking late models. Cade Bowman has announced a full-time effort with R&S Race Cars for the 2025 season, so that'll be good to see some new equipment and new team scaling there. Moving over to NASCAR news. Xfinity Series news, William Sawalich will drive the number 18 full-time in Xfinity for Joe Gibbs Racing in 2025. No surprise there. There were some rumors out about that. And then a big one, Justin Allgaier is going to return with his Brandt sponsorship for a multi-year deal with JR Motorsports. So obviously at least 2 years, maybe more. So he at least got 2 more seasons with Allgaier and JRM together. and that Brandt sponsorship livery. So that's good to see there. Healthy business model going on for that, and that's just good to see. Moving over to Truck Series, Mr. Frankie Muniz, the same one you think of as an actor. He's been running around the K&N Series. He did a little bit of ARCA. Now he's struck a full-time Truck Series deal for 2025 with Rium Brothers Racing. It's a good lower-level team. We'll see how he goes moving up the ladder with them and what he can accomplish. But yeah, he was at Homestead this last weekend, I believe, as well, doing a one-off. Didn't place very well, if I remember right. I could be saying something completely wrong, but I'm pretty sure he was in that race. If I remember, he was in the back of the pack with some stuff. So going over to Cup Series news, sad piece of news to start out. Jeff McDuffie, who's the son of racing legend J.D. McDuffie, passed away unexpectedly at the age of 62. Jeff raced 5 Cup Series races with his dad. His last Cup race was in 1988 at North Wilkesboro. But yeah, just kind of out of the blue, passed away at the age of 62. So our thoughts go out to the families on that one. Sad to hear that. Moving on from there, Jeremy Bullins has announced he's leaving Team Penske and the Wood Brothers immediately. This was announced prior to Miami, which we'll recap here shortly. He came to Wood Brothers as part of the Penske Alliance. There isn't really much being said about it other than it all came together really fast that he would no longer be there. So I don't know if he's worked up another deal with something else, but crew chief Grant Hunchett will take over for the rest of the season as the interim crew chief, if you will, however you want to say it, on that number 21 for the last couple of races of the season. Another real interesting piece of news here, NASCAR finally made things right with Bobby Allison and awarded him with his 85th win. This breaks a tie he held for 4th place in overall wins, making him the sole 4th place finisher of all NASCAR Cup wins of all time. This win came from overturning a quote-unquote disqualification post-race from Bowman Gray on August 6, 1971. He did win this race, celebrated like he won the race, and they took the victory later, and they ruled it as a no contest and never declared a winner for the longest time in the NASCAR books, but now it's been changed. So, all-time winner list, we'll do the top 5 while we're talking about it. Richard Petty at 200 wins. David Pearson at 105 wins. Jeff Gordon, 3rd place, 93 wins overall. Bobby Allison now can jump in at 85 wins. And then Darrell Waltrip is one behind him at 84 wins in 5th place. So, yeah, good to see that. Good to see he's still, Bobby Allison's still roaming around and was able to accept the award in person and get to see his name move up one on the record books. So, congrats to that. Right, let's go through some race recaps. We'll start off with USAC National Sprints, Red Dirt Raceway. Friday night feature went to Matt Westfall. He gets the win. This is his first national win this season. Saturday night, final race of the season, the feature win goes to Justin Grant. Championship going into the weekend was pretty much in the bag for Logan Seavey, and he walks away as the 2024 champion, even though he didn't win either of those races. Still walked away overall points winner and champion for national sprints. We're getting down to the end of it. There's not a whole lot left.
It's pretty cool. We sucked all night. We qualified decent, but it wasn't very good, and we made wholesale changes there for the feature, and it slowed down enough to where we could idle the bottom there, and nobody else could hold down there. So it was pretty cool. I got to thank Ray Marshall, my wife, my daughter, my mom, my dad, everybody. I mean, it's just it's a dream come true to be able to win some USAC races. So that's pretty cool.
Let's move over to World of Outlaws. They've still got a little bit of season left. Friday night feature win goes to Carson Macedo. Much needed points to try and close the championship gap. They just had the one race night on that one at Riverside Raceway. So points as they run races remaining, everything you want to look at. We've got 4 race nights left for the World Championship. One event, basically. It's a 4-night deal, November 6th through 9th, and that'll decide how the season ends for the World of Outlaws. Currently, points championship, pretty strong lead by David Gravel. No surprise there, really. Carson Macedo made up some room again. He's minus 74 points right now, and Donnie Schatz is in 3rd at minus 176. Donnie Schatz is a ways out, but if he has an extremely good championship weekend, he could upset and pull something off, but I feel like the battle's really going to be between Gravel and Macedo to bring it home for 2024.
Yeah, I was nervous. A lot of those double file restarts, I didn't know where to be. The top was kind of where the grip and the rubber was, but I didn't want to be too high and then miss it and not get off 4 nice and then him beat me down into turn 1. But man, I want to say, I'm sorry to that lapper, the 23 car. I could see David behind me on the big screen. I knew he was breathing right down my back, and I knew I had to make moves or I was going to get ate up. We were just going so slow down into turn 3, and I was getting nervous. And I seen the opening, and I drove it in there, and it was probably silly with the rubber being the way it was, but I didn't want to, get complacent and end up getting past. So I'm sorry to that team, and feel bad their stuff's tore up.
We also still in North America for Formula One, Mexico City race. A couple things to talk about on this one. FP1, there was a wild crash between Alex Albon and Ollie Bierman. Bierman was just out testing. There was a lot of testing going on at this one in the FP1. Albon was way out of control coming out of the corner. Tried to blame Bierman on the radio, but he was running slow and he was making room. So he was out of the way. He's out of the racing line. Albon was definitely at fault, but either way, tore up a bunch of expensive race cars with that one. A lot of reserve drivers, like I mentioned, in FP1. Not necessarily a reserve driver, but IndyCar's Pato O'Ward got to deal with McLaren to do a FP1 test. And he was able to run some laps in front of the hometown fans. Obviously, he's got a huge support wherever he goes, even if Mark Miles disagrees. Running for McLaren. He was 13th in speed overall for the session, which was pretty awesome to see because there's a lot of full-time guys that weren't as fast as he was that do it every day. So definitely adapted quick. Moving over to FP2, George Russell put his car in the barrier after being super fast in FP1. Albon did not participate due to the crash in FP1, so he didn't participate in FP2 at all. Qualification, Carlos Sainz gets the pole. Hometown, love it. Brings us to the race. Right on the first corner of lap 1, Yuki Tsunoda tries to make a squeeze move, ends up in the wall, first corner, pinballs off Albon. Having a hell of a weekend for Albon. Messes up a lot of stuff there. And other than that, it was pretty uneventful. Verstappen racked up several 10-second penalties for track limits and forcing cars off the track. And whatever you want to say, he was driving the same way as pretty much everybody else was, but he got a couple penalties to deal with there. Fernando Alonso, who, by the way, this was his 400th start in Formula One. He had to retire his car early, which was unfortunate for the 400th start. And then we get to the win where Carlos Sainz gets Ferrari another win. So really important stuff. Obviously, he started out on the pole, had a great weekend. This is his 4th career win. Plus, you get Constructors' Championship points for Ferrari, which they definitely need because they're battling McLaren for that right now. Things are getting tight. We've got 2 full races left and 4 sprint events in Formula One. So stay tuned for that, and we'll see how the real battle is the Constructors' Championship. I think Max, even though he's had a rough patch, he's still gonna take home the title. Moving over to NASCAR, Homestead Miami, great speedway to have this time of year. A lot of debate if we should have the finale there instead of Phoenix. I'm kind of on board with that. But looking at it, we'll start with the Truck Series. Stage 1, Corey Heim. Stage 2, Grant Enfinger. During Stage 3, Matt Mills took a hard hit. He got a hard bump from Connor Jones, put him in the wall super awkwardly and hard. Mills ended up staying in the hospital for a couple nights for concussion monitoring the first night, and then the monitor his lungs and whatnot for smoke inhalation the second night. So he has returned home, so that's good. Nice Motorsports, get him home and get him feeling better before the finale. Going to the win, you get Grant Enfinger, back-to-back wins. He's basically out of fuel, but he somehow makes it work, so that team's really got it figured out. Congrats to them. Moving over to the Xfinity race. Stage 1, Austin Hill. Stage 2, Austin Hill again, and the win goes to Austin Hill. So total domination for Austin Hill in Miami. Locks himself in to the playoffs with that win. Him and AJ Allmendinger together now locked in the playoffs. Chasing them, Justin Allgaier, Cole Custer. Then below the cut right now, currently, you've got Chandler Smith at minus 25, Jesse Love minus 35, Sam Mayer's further back, and Sammy Smith is further back. So you've got quite a bit going on there in the Xfinity. A lot of stuff can change. A lot of things can happen. So, right, moving into the Cup Series. This was a fantastic race. Good old school style NASCAR race. Obviously, still have the playoffs and everything going on, but the racing was pretty good. You did have some spacing out in the middle, but the final 10 laps were wildly exciting. A lot of good to be had, and overall just pretty awesome. Pretty awesome to see. So going into qualifying, pole goes to Tyler Reddick, which this was a great momentum builder going into the race weekend because he was below the cut line, needed some good points to make stuff happen. Obviously last week in Vegas he had a rough time with flipping the car over and all that. So stage 1 win actually went to Tyler Reddick as well, which he gets those important stage points. So great to see that. Stage 2 goes to Denny Hamlin. Another very important stage point type situation. Get anything he can get at this point to try to make that final 4. He's still close. Then the win, perfectly executed pass on the last lap. Tyler Reddick goes around Ryan Blaney on old tires. No idea how he does it. He shouldn't have been able to hook up like he did. Gets it done. Perfect execution. Locks himself into the championship 4. The excitement from the team and seeing Michael Jordan and his excitement for it as a team owner. Just an awesome moment. Well deserved for the team. I'm a huge Ryan Blaney fan, but I'm also a Tyler Reddick fan, and I thoroughly believe that he deserved that win. He executed that perfectly in Miami, and he deserves that spot. So on other notes, Larson had a really rough day. Yeah, he got too close to the boards early on, cut a tire, which then that ruins the underbody of the car once again. He fights his way back up into the top 10 after the damage and repair in the pits. Took him a while, but he made it back up to the top 10. Get nearly as many points as he could have. He was in contention to possibly win this race as well, as long as almost all the other 7 non-locked-in playoff drivers were. But how it shakes out, Tyler Reddick gets the win. Blaney comes in second. Here we are looking at going into Martinsville. So going into Martinsville, this is a last chance win to lock in to the final 4 for these guys. Looking at the 8 that will turn into 4 after Martinsville. You've got Logano, who's locked in. Reddick is locked in. Bell is above the cut line on points, as well as Byron, who again, Byron, we talked about it last week. He's just quietly sitting back, earning points when he needs to, and trying to work his way in the quiet way. Then below the cut line, you've got Larson at -7 points. Martinsville's a decent track for him. It's not their best. Honestly, Homestead is one of their better tracks, but -7 points, that can be made up. Hamlin's -18 below the cut line there. He's still got a chance to win it on points. Blaney's in 7th and Elliott's in 8th. Those are going to be must-win scenarios. There's really no doubt about it. I mean, I don't know how else you can get in without winning for those guys. So going into Martinsville, we'll see how it all shakes out.
I'm Tony Bettenhausen. GMC truck has been the official truck at the Indianapolis 500 for many years. That's dependability. For 9 years, GMC has had the best average resale value, beating out Chevrolet, Ford, Dodge, and Jeep. That's real quality. That's also a winner, and that's why I bought a GMC.
All right, time for our history portion this week. This week we're going to talk about Tony Bettenhausen Jr., not Tony Bettenhausen Sr. That one would be a little bit longer episode, a lot more to talk about. But Tony Bettenhausen Jr., known as Tony Lee Bettenhausen Jr., born October 30th, 1951, passing away February 14th, 2000, in a plane crash that kind of rocked the racing world when it happened. The name says it all, but Tony Jr. was the son of 14-time Indy 500 participant and racing legend Tony Bettenhausen Sr. The Bettenhausen name in Indianapolis goes back many years, and over the course of the next little bit, we'll cover those individuals in no particular order. Just like to shake things up, right? So we'll definitely touch on the other members of the family, but this one's just about Tony Jr. Tony Jr. participated in 11 Indy 500s as a driver. He ended up with his best finish in 7th place in 1981, which was his rookie start in the Indy 500. Tony also participated in 33 NASCAR Cup Series races, and his best finish being in the top 10 at 7th place at Richmond. Looking at his Champ Car stats, Champ Car involvement from 1979 to 1993, overall best finish of 6th. He ran 103 races over 15 years. As far as NASCAR stats go, talked about 33 races over 3 years, but these were not in succession, as his first NASCAR race was in 73 and his last appearance was in 1982. So he ran a couple real random seasons, which probably is part of the downfall to his success in NASCAR and what held him back. But becoming a car owner at an earlier age, by 1985, he had taken ownership of the number 16 and created his own racing team. And he was using old, worn-out March and Lola chassis. He eventually would save up some money and resources and start buying Penske chassis that were 1 year post-use, so 1-year-old chassis there. As a team owner, Jr. had several successful drivers come up with him in the team, including four-time Indy 500 champion Helio Castroneves, Patrick Carpentier, who won Rookie of the Year while he was driving for Bettenhausen. They had a F1 crossover driver in Stefan Johansson, who did really well. So he employed a lot of very successful drivers, and he had a lot more success as a team owner than he did in a driver himself. So going into the final day, the tragedy of that plane crash. It was a light plane crash. They were en route from Homestead, which is crazy because we were just talking about Homestead this weekend in NASCAR. This was not planned by any means, but en route from Homestead to Indianapolis, a little private plane situation. Plane went down in Harrison County, Kentucky. On the plane was Bettenhausen's wife Shirley, the daughter of former Indianapolis racing star Jim McElrath, and as well as some other business associates in Russ Roberts and Larry Rangel, and they all died in that plane crash tragedy. So his legacy of a team owner kind of lived on for a while. After he passed, the team was taken over and renamed Pacific Racing, which F1 team owner Keith Wiggins came in and then renamed it Hernandez Competition. In 2001, they decided to switch the number from 16 to the number 55 at the end of the season. So in 2002, it was no longer number 16 for Hernandez Racing, it was number 55. The team moved on, went to further changes over ownership, once changing hands into Paul Stoddart's minority team USA, Wiggins HVM Racing, competing in an IndyCar series until the 2012 season. Aspects of the team stayed alive for another 10-12 years after that plane crash and that tragedy. It was around November 2015 the team was listed up for auction and was basically lost from that point forward to further competition and parted out. So that's a quick rundown about Tony Jr. I'll try something different this week. We did a little voiceover for the Motorsport Memorial. They've been really helpful with a lot of their info. Shout out to them and the stuff they have put together to remember all these old race drivers. But the Motorsports Memorial bio is pretty decent, and go ahead and take a listen.
Tony Lee Bettenhausen Jr., also named Tony Jr., was the youngest son of a famous racing family. His father was two-time USAC national champion 1951 and 1958, Melvin Tony Bettenhausen, who ran 14 times at the Indy 500 from 1946 to 60, with a best finish of second in 1955, being killed in practice in 1961. Tony Jr. was one of three racing brothers. Tony Jr., the last son, was only 9-year-old when his father crashed and died. He started racing in his 20s. In 1972, he finished second in NASCAR's Sportsman division. Then he competed for several years in midget races with minimal success, and also started 33 NASCAR Series events in his career, with a 7th place at Richmond in 1974 as his best result. He drove in 11 Indianapolis 500-mile races from 1981 to 93, obtaining his best result in 1981 with the 7th place. In that same year, he was named Rookie of the Year, placing 6th in championship points at the wheel of the Ott Groenevelt's Provimi Veal-sponsored McLaren, in which Tom Sneva had finished second in the Indy 500 in 1980. Tony Bettenhausen Jr. married Shirley Ann, daughter of the Indy 500 veteran Jim McElrath. The two great American racing families were merged. The Bettenhausens had a son, Bryn Lee, who was born in 1981. Shirley Ann's younger brother, James McElrath Jr., lost his life in a sprint car accident at Winchester, Indiana in 1977. Tony Jr. had his IndyCar debut in 1979, driving his father-in-law Jim's 1972 Eagle at Texas World Speedway. He took his trademark number 16 on until 1993. In the 1987 Indy 500, he finished an encouraging 10th, but saw a loose wheel from his March Cosworth being punted into the grandstands, where it killed a spectator, Lyle Kurtenbach. In 1988, Tony Jr. founded his own team, purchasing a CART franchise, and in 1992, 2 weeks after he failed to qualify at the Indy 500, it was former Formula One Swedish driver Stefan Johansson to take the wheel of his number 16 car in the next CART event at Detroit. Johansson, the first Bettenhausen Motorsports paid driver, obtained a remarkable third at Detroit, finishing 13th in season points, winning the Rookie of the Year title. Tony Bettenhausen Jr. retired from active racing 1 year later after the 1993 Indy 500 20th place, which also marked his brother Gary's last appearance 17th and Stefan Johansson's first 11th. He became a full-time owner, managing a number of successful drivers who passed through Bettenhausen Motorsports cars over the years, including Gary Brabham, Scott Sharp, Dutch driver Cor User. His brother Merle Bettenhausen operated as team manager for a while. Due to a lack of sponsorship, the team's fortunes took a downturn in 1999. Tony Jr. went on with the Japanese driver Shigeaki Hattori, but the season soon became a disaster. In sight of the 2000 season, the optimism came back, with Mexican driver Michel Jourdain Jr. and his Herdez sponsorship that joined the team. They went through the CART Championship Auto Racing Team's spring training, scheduled to be held on February at Homestead, Florida. On Monday, the 14th of February 2000, Tony Jr. started the flight home from Homestead to Indianapolis, piloting his Beechcraft Baron BE-58. The small plane went down in central Kentucky, near the town of Leesburg in Harrison County, crashed into a hillside, killing all the 4 passengers instantly. He was buried at Crown Hill Cemetery in Indianapolis, Marion County, Indiana, alongside his wife.
That pretty much sums up this week's episode. We're getting toward wrapping stuff up. Things are getting busy. This time of year is crazy for everyone. We'll keep these episodes a little shorter. But we do have stuff to talk about every week still until we're done with all the racing. So at which point we'll probably just cover kind of rumors, news, and maybe some history, further extensive history even. So appreciate it. As always, like, subscribe, tell a friend, share the podcast. Give us a rating. Email us at historichotlapse@gmail.com if you have anything you want to talk about, any comments, advice, anything really. We're open books here. So with that, hopefully everyone has a good week. We'll see what happens this weekend in racing and see what our Championship 4 NASCAR is going to look like. And yeah, other than that, stay safe and thanks for tuning in.
Go. So, a crash, another one, a wild spin. It's car number 16. That's Tony Bettenhausen. Tony Bettenhausen Jr., son of a famous father. His brother Gary also in the race. They're one of the 4 sets of brothers in this race. The yellow flag out, of course, right away. He's, well, still in the car.
Oh, no.
Trying to see if he's moving because he hit that wall pretty hard.
Oh, he did. This is a clear case of mechanical failure of some kind. I mean, the car was on the straightaway and it just suddenly swerved. Look, they have removable steering wheels. That's why the wheel is just sitting up there.
He looks a little stunned. See how slowly he's getting out?
Yeah, but he's
not fair to be
getting out. Let's have
see.
another look at it if we can. Oh, yeah. Look at that. Probably a half shaft. We've talked about that in conjunction with possibly the Kevin Cogan thing, Jim. And it just, if you're driving 700, 800 horsepower to those rear wheels and then one rear wheel is no longer driving, the car just turns as sharply as if you twisted the wheel as hard as you could. And of course, you know, with that smoke and that car zigging, zagging back and forth across the road, you can imagine what it was like to be bearing down on that scene.
Thank you for sharing your time with us. If you enjoyed today's episode, make sure to subscribe and leave us a review wherever you listen to your podcasts. Don't forget to follow us at Historic Hot Laps on X and all your other social platforms for the latest updates and sneak peeks into upcoming episodes. You can reach out to us directly at historichotlaps@gmail.com. Send us your feedback, questions, comments, opinions, and additional subject matter you'd like us to cover. Thanks for tuning in.